After 21 long years, Grandma's heart skipped a beat when she saw her son at the doorstep. She had waited for this day, hoping to see her son again, after he had left to pursue his dreams, abandoning the small village they once called home. But when he returned, something wasn't right. At first, he seemed just like the young man she remembered, yet there was an air of mystery around him. As the days passed, Grandma began noticing strange changes in his behavior, secretive whispers, locked rooms, and a sense of unease that she couldn't ignore. Was it possible that the son she had longed to see was hiding something from her? With her sharp instincts, Grandma decided to uncover the truth, but what she discovered left her speechless. What secrets was her son keeping, and how would it change their bond forever? The morning sun cast long shadows across the dusty path leading to Grandma Chen's modest home in the village of Willow Creek. At 73, her weathered hands still worked the small vegetable garden with the same determination she'd had for decades, though her movements were slower now, more deliberate. The tomatoes were particularly good this year, she thought, wiping the sweat from her brow as she straightened her aching back. 21 years. That's how long it had been since she'd harvested vegetables with her son, Wei. 21 years since he'd left this very garden, promising to make something of himself in the city, promising to return successful and proud. She remembered that day like it was yesterday, how he'd hugged her tightly, his young face full of dreams and ambition, telling her not to cry because he'd be back before she knew it. But the years had stretched on, marked only by occasional phone calls that grew less frequent, birthday cards that eventually stopped coming, and the aching emptiness in her heart that never quite healed. The other villagers had stopped asking about Wei years ago, their pitying looks replaced by polite silence whenever his name might have come up. Grandma Chen had learned to live with the loneliness, filling her days with routine and her nights with memories of the boy who used to help her plant seeds and chase chickens around the yard. She was lost in these thoughts when she heard footsteps on the gravel path. Looking up, she expected to see Mrs. Zhang from next door, coming to borrow sugar as she often did. But the figure approaching was taller, broader, wearing an expensive-looking dark suit that seemed out of place in their humble village. The man's face was obscured by the morning glare, but something about his walk, the way he carried himself, made her heart flutter with a recognition she couldn't quite place. As he drew closer, stepping into the shade of the old oak tree, Grandma Chen's basket of freshly picked vegetables tumbled from her hands. Tomatoes rolled across the dirt as her trembling fingers reached up to cover her mouth. Those eyes, she would know those eyes anywhere, even after all these years. Wei, she whispered, her voice barely audible above the morning breeze. The man stopped a few feet away, his face a mixture of emotions she couldn't quite read. He was older now, lines around his eyes that hadn't been there before, his hair touched with premature gray at the temples. But it was him. It was her son. "Hello, Mother," Wei said, his voice deeper than she remembered but carrying the same gentle tone that used to ask for one more bedtime story. The space between them felt like an ocean of lost time, filled with questions and hurt and longing. Grandma Chen took a shaky step forward, then another, until she was close enough to touch his face, to confirm that this wasn't another dream that would dissolve with the morning light. "My boy," she sobbed, pulling him into an embrace that felt both foreign and achingly familiar. "You came back. You finally came back." Wei's arms wrapped around her smaller frame, but there was something stiff about his embrace, something that made her maternal instincts prickle even through her joy. When they pulled apart, she searched his face, noting the expensive watch on his wrist, the manicured nails, the shoes that probably cost more than she spent in a year. Success, it seemed, had found her son in the city. But at what cost? "I'm sorry it took so long," Wei said, his eyes not quite meeting hers. "There's so much to explain, so much that's happened." He glanced around the familiar yard, his gaze lingering on the house, the garden, the chicken coop that still stood in the same spot. "Nothing's changed," he murmured, though whether with relief or disappointment, she couldn't tell. "Come," Grandma Chen said, wiping her tears with her sleeve. "Come inside. I'll make tea, and you can tell me everything. Are you hungry? You must be hungry." "I'll cook your favorite, Mother," Wei interrupted gently, placing a hand on her arm. "Tea would be wonderful. But I can't stay long today. I have some things to arrange." I've rented the old Lynn house at the edge of the village. I'll be staying there for a while. The old Lynn house? It had been empty for years, practically falling apart. Why would he choose to stay there instead of in his childhood home? But Grandma Chen pushed on her questions, not wanting to spoil this miraculous moment with doubts. Of course, she said, forcing a smile. Whatever you need, my son. I'm just so happy you're here. As they walked toward the house, Wei's phone buzzed. He glanced at it quickly, his jaw tightening, before sliding it back into his pocket. Everything all right? Grandma Chen asked. Fine, he said, but his smile didn't reach his eyes. Just some business matters. Nothing that can't wait. But as they entered the house, Grandma Chen noticed how his eyes darted to the windows, how he chose the chair facing the door, how his fingers drummed nervously against his thigh. Her son had returned, yes, but something had returned with him. Something that made him jump at shadows and speak in careful, measured words. As she busied herself with the tea, stealing glances at this stranger who wore her son's face, one thought echoed in her mind: what happened to you in those 21 years, Wei? And why do you look like a man who's running from something? The next morning arrived with an unsettling stillness that made Grandma Chen's skin prickle with unease. She had barely slept, her mind replaying every moment of Wei's return, analyzing each word, each gesture, each fleeting expression that had crossed his face. The joy of reunion was already being tempered by a mother's intuition that something was terribly wrong. She dressed quickly and made her way to the kitchen, hoping to prepare a proper breakfast to take to the old Lynn house. Perhaps over a warm meal, Wei would open up to her, share whatever burden he was carrying. But as she passed the window, she stopped short. There he was, her son, already awake and pacing in her garden, his phone pressed to his ear, his free hand gesturing animatedly as he spoke in hushed, urgent tones. Even from inside, she could see the tension in his shoulders, the way he kept glancing around as if expecting someone to jump out from behind the vegetable rows. Grandma Chen quietly cracked open the window, not to eavesdrop, she told herself, but out of concern. Wei's voice drifted in, speaking in a mixture of Mandarin and English that she could barely follow. I told you I needed more time, he was saying, his tone sharp with frustration. No, they can't know. Not yet. I just got here yesterday. Yes, I understand the stakes. The old woman doesn't suspect anything. The old woman? Is that what she had become to him? Grandma Chen's heart clenched as she stepped back from the window, her hands trembling. Who is he talking to? And what couldn't she know? When Wei finally ended his call and turned toward the house, she busied herself at the stove, pretending she had seen nothing. He entered without knocking, at least that hadn't changed, but his smile was forced, his eyes scanning the room before settling on her. You're up early, Mother, he said, accepting the cup of tea she offered. Old habits, she replied, studying his face. You were up early too. Business? Always business, he said with a laugh that didn't sound quite right. That's city life for you. Even on vacation, the work follows. He pulled out his phone again as it buzzed, frowning at the screen before quickly putting it away. Wei, Grandma Chen said carefully, you know you can tell me anything, don't you? Whatever's troubling you, nothing's troubling me, he said too quickly. I'm just adjusting to being back. It's been a long time. He stood abruptly, leaving his tea barely touched. I should go. I have some calls to make, and the reception at the Lynn house is terrible. I might drive into town. But you just got here, she protested. We have so much to catch up on. 21 years, Wei. I don't even know what you do for work, if you're married, if I have grandchildren, there's time for all that, he said, already moving toward the door. I'll come by later. Maybe dinner? But he didn't come for dinner. Or the next day's lunch. Over the following days, a pattern emerged that made Grandma Chen's worry deepen into genuine fear. Wei would appear at odd hours, always distracted, always leaving quickly. He spoke in vague terms about his life in the city, something about international business, investments, opportunities that required discretion. When pressed for details, he would change the subject or suddenly remember an urgent call he needed to make. The villagers had begun to talk, as villagers do. Mrs. Zhang mentioned seeing expensive cars coming and going from the Lin house at all hours. Mr. Liu, who lived nearest to the old property, complained about lights burning all night and the sound of multiple voices carrying on the wind. Some said they'd seen Wei at the village's only internet cafe, hunched over a computer for hours, his face grave with concentration. But it was the incident at the market that truly set Grandma Chen's nerves on edge. She had been selecting vegetables for dinner, hoping to finally convince Wei to share a proper meal with her, when she spotted him near the pharmacy. He was with a woman she didn't recognize, young, sharply dressed, with cold eyes that seemed to take in everything while revealing nothing. They were arguing, though trying to keep their voices down. Grandma Chen moved closer, pretending to examine some fruit. "This wasn't the deal," the woman was saying. "You promised it would be ready by now." "I need more time," Wei replied, his voice strained. "It's complicated." Your mother is the least of your problems," the woman cut him off. "They're getting impatient. You know what happens when they get impatient." "Are you threatening me?" Wei's voice had turned dangerous, a tone Grandma Chen had never heard from her gentle son. "I'm reminding you of your obligations," the woman said coolly. "You have 48 hours. After that, we come for what's ours. And if it's not ready..." She didn't finish the sentence, but the implication hung in the air like a storm cloud. When the woman walked away, Wei stood there for a moment, his hands clenched into fists, before turning and nearly colliding with his mother. The color drained from his face. "Mother! I didn't. How long have you been standing there?" "Long enough," Grandma Chen said quietly. "Wei, what have you gotten yourself into?" "It's nothing," he said, but his eyes were wild, desperate. "Just business. A difficult client. You don't understand how cutthroat the city can be." "I may be old, but I'm not stupid," she said, reaching for his hand. He pulled away. "That woman threatened you. What does she want? What are you hiding in that old house?" "Please," Wei said, and for a moment, she saw her little boy again, scared and trying to be brave. "Please, Mother. Just trust me. Everything will be fine. I just need a few more days to sort things out." "Let me help you," she pleaded. "Whatever it is, we can face it together." But Wei was already backing away, shaking his head. "The less you know, the safer you are. I shouldn't have come back. This was a mistake." "Don't say that," Grandma Chen called after him, but he was already disappearing into the crowd, leaving her standing alone among the market stalls, fear settling into her bones like winter cold. That night, she sat by her window, watching the lights flicker in the distant Lin house. Shadows moved behind the curtains, too many shadows for one man living alone. Whatever her son had brought back with him from the city, it was more than just success and expensive clothes. It was danger, the kind that made him jump at sounds and speak in codes and push away the only family he had left. As she prepared for bed, Grandma Chen made a decision. Tomorrow, she would find out what was happening in that house. Her son might think he was protecting her with his secrets, but she had protected him for 18 years before he left. She wasn't about to stop now. Outside, a car engine started in the darkness, its headlights sweeping across her window as it headed toward the Lin house. Grandma Chen pulled her curtains tight, but not before she noticed something that made her blood run cold. The same woman from the market was driving, and she wasn't alone. The passenger seat held a man whose face she couldn't see, but whose silhouette suggested someone accustomed to violence. "What have you brought to our village, my son?" she whispered to the empty room. The clock on her wall ticked past midnight, counting down Wei's 48 hours, and Grandma Chen knew with terrible certainty that whatever was coming would test the bonds of family in ways she never imagined. She only hoped their love would be strong enough to survive it. The morning of the second day brought no peace to Grandma Chen's troubled heart. She had spent the night formulating a plan, and as dawn broke across the village, she was already dressed and ready. If Wei wouldn't tell her the truth, she would find it herself. She had raised that boy, knew every tell when he was lying, every habit when he was afraid. Whatever secrets he was harboring, she would uncover them. Her first stop was the village records office, where her old friend May worked. The small building smelled of dust and old paper, a testament to the centuries of history stored within its walls. May looked up from her desk, surprised to see her so early. "Chin. What brings you here at this hour?" "I need to know about the Lin house," Grandma Chin said without preamble. "Who owns it now?" "My son is renting it, but from whom?" May's expression shifted to one of concern. "Your son? I heard he was back." "How wonderful for you." But her enthusiasm dimmed when she saw Grandma Chen's face. "What's wrong?" "Please, May." "The records." With a sigh, May pulled out a thick ledger, running her finger down the entries. "Here it is. The Lin house. Oh, that's strange. It was purchased 6 months ago by a company called Golden Phoenix Enterprises. They paid cash, well above asking price. The whole transaction was rushed through in less than a week. 6 months ago. Long before Wei had supposedly decided to visit. Grandma Chen felt a chill run down her spine. "Have you heard of this company?" May shook her head. "But there's more. They've been paying to have the house renovated, but the workers they hired aren't local. They bring everything in from the city, workers, materials, everything. Very secretive. Old Lou says they installed some kind of security system, cameras everywhere." Thanking her friend, Grandma Chen left with more questions than answers. Her next stop was the internet cafe, where the owner, young Tommy, greeted her with surprise. "Auntie Chen. Are you finally going to learn to use email?" "I need to know about my son," she said quietly. "He's been coming here." "What does he do?" Tommy's face closed off immediately. "I can't tell you what customers do online. Privacy, you understand?" "Tommy," she said firmly, "I changed your diapers when you were a baby. I taught your mother how to make proper dumplings. Don't talk to me about privacy when my son is in trouble." The young man shifted uncomfortably, then glanced around to make sure they were alone. "He's always on encrypted sites," he whispered. "Financial stuff, lots of transfers. And video calls with people who, they don't look friendly, Auntie. Yesterday, he printed some documents. He was in such a hurry, he left one behind." Tommy reached under the counter and pulled out a single sheet of paper. Grandma Chen's hands shook as she read it. It was in English mostly, but she understood enough. Transfer confirmation. Offshore accounts. Numbers that made her head spin, millions of dollars. And at the bottom, a note, final payment upon delivery of package. Location, Lin house. Handler, Chin Wei. "What package?" she muttered, folding the paper carefully. "What are you delivering, my son?" She spent the rest of the morning gathering information, piecing together a picture that grew more troubling with each detail. The expensive cars visiting the Lin house belonged to a rental company in the city, all paid for by Golden Phoenix Enterprises. The renovation workers had installed a basement where none had existed before. And most disturbing of all, several villagers had seen men in dark suits patrolling the perimeter of the property at night. By afternoon, Grandma Chen had made up her mind. She would confront Wei directly, demand the truth. But as she approached the Lin house, she saw something that stopped her cold. Her son was in the front yard, and he wasn't alone. 3 men surrounded him, their body language aggressive even from a distance. Wei's hands were raised placatingly, his voice carrying on the wind. "I told you, it's not ready yet," he was saying. "The systems need more time to—" One of the men grabbed Wei by the collar, slamming him against the wall of the house. Grandma Chin gasped, starting forward, but stopped when she saw Wei shake his head slightly. He had spotted her. 24 hours, the man growled. That's all you get. After that, we take what we came for, and you, well, you become a liability we can't afford. They released him and walked to their car, driving past Grandma Chin without a second glance. She rushed to her son, who was straightening his clothes, trying to compose himself. Wei! Are you hurt? Who were those men? Mother, you shouldn't be here, he said urgently, grabbing her arm. It's not safe. You need to go home. Not until you tell me what's going on, she said stubbornly. I know about Golden Phoenix. I know about the money transfers. What package are you supposed to deliver? Wei's face went white. How do you? Mother, please. You don't understand. These people, they're not. I'm trying to protect you. By lying to me? By bringing danger to our village? Tears were streaming down her face now. What happened to my honest boy? What did the city do to you? For a moment, Wei's mask slipped completely, and she saw raw pain in his eyes. I made mistakes, he whispered. I wanted to be successful, to make you proud. But I got involved with the wrong people. I thought I could handle it, thought I could get out, but... He trailed off, running his hands through his hair. They own me now. Everything I built, everything I am, it's all theirs. And if I don't do what they want... What do they want, Wei? He looked at her for a long moment, seeming to wrestle with himself. Finally, he sighed deeply. Come inside. If you really want to know, I'll show you. But once you know, there's no going back. You'll be in as much danger as I am. Grandma Chin squared her shoulders. I'm your mother. Your danger is my danger. Now show me. Wei led her into the house, and what she saw inside made her gasp. The simple rural home had been transformed into some kind of high-tech facility. Computer screens lined the walls, showing streams of data she couldn't begin to understand. Maps of various cities were pinned up, marked with red X's and notations in multiple languages. In the center of it all was a massive safe, its digital display showing a countdown timer, 23 hours 47 minutes and 33 seconds and counting down. What is all this? She breathed. It's a coordination center, Wei said quietly. I'm not just delivering a package, Mother. I'm facilitating the biggest cryptocurrency heist in history. Those computers are siphoning money from thousands of accounts, laundering it through complex algorithms I designed. The package is access codes to digital wallets containing over $100 million. Grandma Chin had to sit down, her legs suddenly weak. You're a thief? I was a programmer, Wei said bitterly. A good one. But good wasn't enough in the city. I wanted more money, more success, more everything. So when they approached me with an offer to use my skills for something illegal but incredibly profitable, I said yes. Just once, I told myself. Just enough to set myself up. He laughed humorlessly. But once isn't a word they understand. Each job led to another, each bigger than the last. And now, this is their masterpiece. After this job, they promised I could walk away. But you don't believe them, Grandma Chin said, reading his face. No, he admitted. I know too much. Once I deliver those codes, I'm a loose end. That's why I came home. I thought maybe I could hide here long enough to figure out an exit strategy. But they found me anyway. They always find everyone. We'll go to the police, Grandma Chin said firmly. We'll tell them everything. With what proof? Wei asked. Everything is encrypted, hidden behind layers of security. And these people have connections everywhere. The police, the government, they own people at every level. The moment I try to expose them, we're both dead. The countdown timer continued its relentless march, 23 hours 41 minutes and 16 seconds. There has to be another way, Grandma Chen insisted. We can't just give them what they want. Wei was about to respond when his security system chimed. On one of the monitors, they could see a black van pulling up outside. The woman from the market stepped out, along with 4 men who moved with military precision. They're early, Wei said, his face draining of color. Mother, you need to hide. Now. I'm not leaving you, she said fiercely. Yes, you are, he said, pulling up a floorboard to reveal a hidden space. Get in. Whatever happens, whatever you hear, don't come out until they're gone. Wei, please, Mother. If they know you know about this, they'll kill us both. At least this way, one of us has a chance. The pounding on the door had already begun. With no choice, Grandma Chen climbed into the hiding space, her heart hammering as Wei replaced the floorboard above her. Through the cracks, she could hear everything. Open up, Chen, the woman's cold voice called. We've decided not to wait. You've had enough time. She heard Wei's footsteps, the door opening, multiple people entering the room. I told you 24 hours, Wei said. You gave me 48 originally. Plans change, the woman said. Our buyers are getting nervous. They want the codes now. The system isn't fully synchronized yet, Wei protested. If we transfer now, we could lose half the funds. That's a risk we're willing to take. Open the safe. There was a pause, then Wei's voice, steady but resigned. No. The sound of a gun being cocked made Grandma Chen bite her hand to keep from crying out. I'm sorry, what was that? The woman asked dangerously. I said no, Wei repeated. I'm done being your puppet. You want the codes? You'll have to kill me. But good luck accessing a system designed to recognize only my biometrics when I'm dead. Silence stretched taut as a wire. Then the woman laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Oh, Chen. You think you're so clever. But we've been doing this far longer than you have. Boys? Grandma Chen heard a struggle, Wei's grunt of pain, something heavy hitting the floor. She pressed her eye to a crack in the floorboards and saw her son on his knees, blood trickling from his mouth, while one of the men held a gun to his head. Here's what's going to happen, the woman said conversationally. You're going to open that safe and transfer those codes. Or we're going to bring your sweet old mother here and start removing her fingers one by one until you do. Oh yes, we know all about her. Did you really think we hadn't been watching? You're lying, Wei said, but his voice shook. She has nothing to do with this. Then you won't mind if we pay her a visit? I'm sure she's at home right now, probably making dinner, completely unaware that her son's stubbornness is about to cost her everything. From her hiding spot, Grandma Chen watched her son's shoulders slump in defeat. He struggled to his feet, walking slowly to the safe. As he began entering the combination, she made a decision that would change everything. Her son might be willing to sacrifice himself for her, but she wasn't willing to let him. Not when there might still be a way out. The timer read 23 hours 22 minutes and 47 seconds. Less than a day to find help, to save her son from the web he'd tangled himself in. As the safe doors swung open and Wei began the transfer process, Grandma Chen carefully, silently, began working on the loose floorboard at the far end of her hiding space. If these criminals thought they were dealing with just a programmer and a helpless old woman, they were about to learn how wrong they were. After all, she hadn't survived 73 years in this world without learning a few tricks of her own. The darkness in the crawlspace beneath the Lin house was absolute, broken only by thin lines of light filtering through the floorboards above. Grandma Chen held her breath as she listened to her son's fingers clicking across the keyboard, each keystroke another step toward completing the criminal's demands. But her mind was racing, processing everything she had seen and heard, formulating a desperate plan. Through the cracks, she could hear Wei's voice, deliberately slow as he explained each step of the transfer process to his captors. He was buying time, she realized. But for what? The first authentication is complete, Wei said. But the full transfer will take several hours. The blockchain needs to verify. Spare us the technical details, the woman interrupted. Just get it done. Grandma Chen carefully continued working on the loose floorboard, years of garden work having given her fingers a strength that belied her age. The board finally gave way, revealing a narrow tunnel that seemed to lead toward the back of the house. It must have been part of the renovations, an escape route Wei had prepared. Her clever son, always thinking ahead. But as she began to crawl through the musty passage, her heart heavy with the decision to leave Wei behind temporarily, she heard something that made her pause. "Ma'am," one of the men said urgently. "We've got movement on the perimeter cameras. 2 vehicles approaching, no headlights." The woman cursed sharply. "How did they find us?" "Chin, did you contact someone?" "No," Wei said, and Grandma Chen could hear genuine confusion in his voice. "I've been with you the whole time." "Defensive positions," the woman barked. "If it's the authorities, we go with Plan B. If it's competition." She didn't finish the sentence, but the sound of weapons being readied filled the room. Grandma Chen's mind raced. Who could be coming? She hadn't had time to contact anyone, and Wei seemed genuinely surprised. Unless... A memory surfaced from her conversation with Tommy at the internet cafe. He had mentioned Wei making video calls to unfriendly-looking people. What if Wei had been playing more than one side? The tunnel led to a hidden exit behind an old tool shed. Grandma Chen emerged into the cool night air, her clothes covered in dirt and cobwebs. From her position, she could see the approaching vehicles, black SUVs that moved with predatory grace through the darkness. They stopped just outside the property line, and figures in tactical gear emerged, moving with military precision. This wasn't the police. This was something else entirely. She needed to warn Wei, but how? Going back inside would mean certain death. Then she remembered the old emergency bell in the village square. It hadn't been rung in decades, but it would certainly get attention. But as she turned to run toward the village, a hand fell on her shoulder. She nearly screamed before recognizing the face in the moonlight. "Mrs. Zhang," her neighbor whispered. "What are you doing here?" "How did you? I've been watching the Lin house for days," the elderly woman admitted. "My grandson is a police officer in the provincial capital. When I told him about the strange activities, he said to keep watch and call if anything happened. I saw you go in earlier, then all these people arrived." "You called the police?" Grandma Chen asked hopefully. Mrs. Zhang shook her head. "No signal out here. But I did something else. I contacted someone your son has been video calling. A woman named Lin Mei. She said she was Wei's insurance policy." Before Grandma Chen could process this, the night erupted in chaos. The tactical team breached the Lin house from multiple entry points, and the sound of gunfire shattered the rural quiet. Screams and shouts in multiple languages filled the air. Through the windows, muzzle flashes lit up like deadly fireworks. "Wei!" Grandma Chen started forward, but Mrs. Zhang held her back with surprising strength. "Wait," she urged. "Look." A figure was emerging from the chaos, Wei, bloodied but alive, being hustled out by 2 members of the tactical team. But instead of treating him like a prisoner, they were protecting him, forming a defensive shield as they moved toward one of the SUVs. The woman from the market stumbled out after them, her perfect composure finally shattered. "You betrayed us," she screamed at Wei. "Do you know what you've done? They'll hunt you forever. Both of you." That's when Grandma Chen understood. Her son hadn't just been buying time, he'd been executing his real plan. The video calls, the delays, even coming home, it had all been part of something larger. A woman emerged from the lead SUV, and even in the darkness, Grandma Chen could see she carried herself with authority. She was young, perhaps 30, with sharp features and eyes that missed nothing. This had to be Lin Mei. Chen Wei, Lin Mei called out. You've fulfilled your part of the bargain. The evidence you've provided will destroy their entire network. In exchange, you and your mother will receive new identities and protection. My mother has nothing to do with this, Wei said quickly. She doesn't know anything. Your mother is currently hiding behind the toolshed with Mrs. Zhang, Lin Mei said calmly, causing everyone to turn. Hello, Auntie Chin. Your son has been very brave, but also very foolish to think he could shield you from all this. Grandma Chen stepped into the open, her chin raised despite her fear. Who are you people? Interpol, Lin Mei replied. Your son contacted us 6 months ago when he realized the organization he worked for was planning something catastrophic. He's been undercover ever since, gathering evidence. The cryptocurrency heist was just the tip of the iceberg. These people are involved in human trafficking, weapons dealing, and worse. You're lying, the woman spat, struggling against her restraints. Chin is one of us. He's a thief, a criminal, he was, Lin Mei agreed. Until he discovered what your organization was really doing with the money he helped steal. Funding terrorism, destroying lives. That's when he came to us. Grandma Chen looked at her son, seeing him with new eyes. The house purchased 6 months ago was to establish a secure base for the operation, Wei confirmed. I'm sorry, Mother. I wanted to tell you, but it was too dangerous. Everything I said about making mistakes was true. But I've been trying to fix them. The timer, Grandma Chen said suddenly. There's still a countdown, the transfer will complete, Wei said. But instead of going to their accounts, it will go to a secure government server. Every transaction will be traced, every contact exposed. 20 years of criminal enterprise ended with a few lines of code. The woman laughed bitterly. You think you've won? You have no idea how deep this goes, how many people will want you dead. You'll be looking over your shoulder for the rest of your life. Perhaps, Wei said quietly. But at least I'll be able to look my mother in the eye again. The tactical team finished securing the scene, loading the criminals into vehicles. Lin Mei approached Wei and Grandma Chen. We need to move you both tonight. Safe houses are prepared. No, Grandma Chen interrupted, surprising everyone. We're not running. Mother, Wei began. I've lived in this village for 73 years, she said firmly. I've buried my husband here, raised my son here. I'm not leaving because of these thugs. Auntie, Lin Mei said gently, you don't understand. The organization will send others. You'll never be safe here. Grandma Chen looked at her son, then at the agent. Then make us safe. You said Wei provided evidence to destroy their network? Then destroy it. All of it. Because I'm too old to start over, and my son has run long enough. It's not that simple, Lin Mei began. Isn't it? Grandma Chen challenged. My son risked everything to do the right thing. He could have taken the money and disappeared, but he chose to help you. Now you help us. Use that evidence, arrest everyone involved, and end this. Or was his sacrifice for nothing? Lin Mei studied the elderly woman with new respect. You're as formidable as your son said. He talked about me? Grandma Chen asked, her voice softening. Constantly, Lin Mei smiled. It's why he insisted on running the operation from here. He said if anything went wrong, he wanted to be close to home. Mother and son looked at each other across the chaos of the night, 21 years of separation suddenly meaning nothing against this moment of truth. Can you forgive me? Wei asked quietly. For the lies, for the danger, for everything? Grandma Chen crossed to him, cupping his face in her weathered hands. My foolish, brave boy. There's nothing to forgive. You lost your way, but you found it again. That's all that matters. As dawn began to break over the village, painting the sky in shades of rose and gold, the convoy prepared to leave. But not for exile, for justice. Wei would testify, provide more evidence, help dismantle the organization piece by piece. And when it was done, he would come home. Really home this time. The countdown, Wei said suddenly, checking his watch. It's almost complete. They watched as he pulled out a laptop, his fingers flying over the keys. On the screen, numbers scrolled past, account numbers, transaction records, a digital paper trail that would lead to arrests across a dozen countries. As the timer hit 0, a simple message appeared: transfer complete. Justice delivered. The woman in custody screamed in rage, but it was too late. Years of criminal enterprise, undone by a man who chose redemption over riches, family over fear. As the vehicles pulled away, Grandma Chen and Wei stood together in the morning light. The Lin house would need to be cleaned out, the village would need explanations, and there would be difficult days ahead. But for now, they had this, a mother and son, reunited not just in presence but in purpose. Come, Grandma Chen said, taking his arm. Let's go home. I'll make breakfast, and you can tell me everything. The real truth this time. Wei smiled, and for the first time since his return, it reached his eyes. Everything, Mother. No more secrets. As they walked back toward her house, the village beginning to wake around them, neither noticed the figure watching from the tree line. A figure who had slipped away during the raid, who had heard everything, who would report back to powers that wouldn't forget or forgive. The battle might be won, but the war was far from over. And in the shadows of victory, new dangers were already taking shape. 3 weeks had passed since the raid on the Lin house, and life in the village had seemingly returned to normal. The authorities had removed all the equipment, the house stood empty once more, and the excitement had died down to occasional whispered conversations at the market. But Grandma Chen knew better than to trust this calm. She could see it in Wei's eyes, the way he still checked windows before sitting down, how he kept his phone always within reach, the subtle tension that never quite left his shoulders. They had developed a routine of sorts. Wei had moved back into his childhood room, helping with the garden during the day and spending his evenings poring over legal documents on his laptop. The trials were beginning, and his testimony would be crucial. Lin Mei called regularly with updates, always emphasizing that the security measures around the village were holding strong. But strong enough for what? That question haunted Grandma Chen as she watched her son pretend everything was fine. This morning started like any other, with Wei helping her prepare vegetables for the market. They worked in comfortable silence, the rhythm of chopping and sorting a meditation of sorts. Then Wei's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his face went pale. What is it? Grandma Chen asked immediately. Nothing, he said, but his hand trembled as he deleted the message. Wei. It's nothing, Mother. Just spam. But Grandma Chen had glimpsed the screen before he deleted it. A photo of their house. Taken from outside. Recently, judging by the morning shadows. Someone was watching them. Before she could press further, there was a knock at the door. They both froze. Visitors were rare this early, and unexpected ones even more so. Wei moved cautiously to the window, peering out before relaxing slightly. It's Mr. Zhao from the bank, he said, opening the door. The elderly banker entered, but his usual cheerful demeanor was replaced by nervous energy. Wei, Mrs. Chen, forgive the early intrusion. But something strange happened this morning. Someone tried to access your account, Mrs. Chen. The old one your husband opened decades ago. That account has been dormant for years, Grandma Chen said, confused. Exactly, Mr. Zhao said. Which is why our security flagged it. They had all the right information, account numbers, your maiden name, even your mother's birthday. But they failed the security question. What did they want? Wei asked, his voice carefully controlled. To make a large deposit, Mr. Zhao said, which surprised them both. 5 million yuan. When we refused without proper authorization, they became agitated. They said you were expecting it, that it was payment for services rendered. Wei and Grandma Chen exchanged glances. We're not expecting any money, Grandma Chen said firmly. I thought not, Mr. Zhao said. That's why I came personally. In my 40 years of banking, I've learned to recognize when something isn't right. This felt like... He hesitated. Like someone trying to set you up, Wei finished grimly. Exactly. If that money had gone through, and it turned out to be illegal funds, we'd be implicated, Grandma Chen understood. Thank you for warning us. After Mr. Zhao left, Wei immediately called Lin Mei. Grandma Chen could only hear his side of the conversation, but it was enough to deepen her worry. They're trying to frame us. No, I don't know how they got the information. Yes, I understand. How long? That's not enough time. When he hung up, his face was grave. Lin Mei says there's been chatter. Some members of the organization escaped the raids. They're regrouping, and they want revenge. The bank incident was just the first move. What else will they do? Grandma Chen asked, though she feared the answer. Anything to discredit me before the trials. If they can paint me as still being corrupt, my testimony becomes worthless. All those people we caught could go free. He ran his hands through his hair in frustration. I should leave. If I'm not here, they'll leave you alone. Don't you dare, Grandma Chen said sharply. We've been through this. We stand together. Over the next few days, the attacks escalated. Packages arrived at the house containing expensive items, watches, jewelry, electronics, all with forged receipts in Wei's name. Anonymous tips were called into the police, claiming Wei was still running illegal operations. Someone even tried to plant drugs in their garden, though fortunately, old Mr. Liu saw them and raised the alarm. The village, which had initially welcomed Wei's return, began to whisper. Doubt crept in like poison. Why were all these things happening? Where there was smoke, wasn't there always fire? Some neighbors stopped greeting them at the market. Others crossed the street to avoid them. The isolation was almost worse than the direct threats. It was during this time that an unexpected ally emerged. Su Ming, a young journalist from the provincial newspaper, arrived in the village. She was bright, ambitious, and most importantly, skeptical of the official narrative being pushed by anonymous sources. Mr. Chen, she said during their first meeting, I've been investigating the organization you helped expose. I think there's a bigger story here, about redemption, about choosing right over profitable wrong. But I need your help to tell it. Wei was hesitant, but Grandma Chen saw an opportunity. We'll tell you everything, she said, ignoring Wei's warning look. But you have to promise to print the truth, not sensationalism. Su Ming agreed, and over the following days, she became a regular presence in their home. She interviewed them both, documenting not just the recent events but Wei's entire journey, his initial descent into crime, his crisis of conscience, his dangerous decision to turn informant. It was during one of these interviews that things took a darker turn. Su Ming had just asked about Wei's handlers in the criminal organization when her phone rang. Her face paled as she listened. There's been an accident, she said after hanging up. My editor, he was hit by a car this morning. They say it was a hit and run, but... She didn't need to finish. They all understood the message, stop the story, or more accidents would follow. You should go, Wei said quietly. This is my fight, not yours. But Su Ming surprised them with her steel. No. This is exactly why the story needs to be told. They're so desperate to silence you that they're attacking anyone who might support you. That tells me we're on the right track. That night, as they discussed their next moves, the power went out. Not unusual in the village, except the neighboring houses still had lights. Wei grabbed a flashlight, his body tense with readiness. Then they heard it, footsteps on the roof. Mother, get to the cellar, Wei whispered urgently. Not without you, she whispered back. Before they could argue further, the front door exploded inward. 3 men entered, their faces covered by masks. Unlike the professional criminals from before, these moved with the brutality of hired thugs. Chen Wei, one growled. You cost our bosses a lot of money. Time to pay up. The fight was brief but vicious. Wei, despite his years in the city, hadn't forgotten the self-defense his father had taught him. But 3 against 1 wasn't fair odds. As he struggled with 2 attackers, the third advanced on Grandma Chen. That's when Su Ming proved she was more than just a journalist. The young woman emerged from the shadows wielding Grandma Chen's heavy rolling pin, bringing it down on the attacker's head with a satisfying thunk. The man crumpled, giving Wei the distraction he needed to break free. The police are already on their way, Su Ming announced loudly. I called them when the power went out. You have about 2 minutes before this place is swarming with officers. It was a bluff, but the attackers didn't know that. With their element of surprise lost and won. Man down, they retreated, dragging their unconscious companion with them. As quickly as it had begun, it was over. How did you know to call the police? Grandma Chen asked Su Ming, who was still clutching the rolling pin. I didn't, the journalist admitted. But my editor always said, in a crisis, confidence is better than competence. Though we should probably call them now. As they waited for the authorities, Wei slumped against the wall, a cut on his forehead bleeding freely. Grandma Chen fussed over him with a wet cloth, her hands steady despite what they'd just endured. This can't continue, Wei said quietly. They'll keep coming. Different faces, different methods, but they won't stop. Then we stop them first, Su Ming said firmly. My editor is stable, by the way. And he's furious. He's fast-tracking the story. Front page, full spread. Your truth against their lies. That could make things worse, Wei warned. Or it could shine so much light on them that they have nowhere left to hide, Grandma Chen countered. Darkness fears the light, Wei. Always has. When the police arrived, led by Mrs. Zhang's grandson, they took the attack seriously. The power cut had been deliberate, the phone lines had been tampered with, and there was evidence of surveillance equipment near the house. This wasn't random violence, it was coordinated intimidation. As dawn broke, Lin Mei arrived personally, her usual calm demeanor cracked with concern. This escalation changes things, she said. We can move up your testimony, get you into protective custody. No, Wei said firmly. That's what they want. To make me run, to make me look guilty. I'm done running. Then what do you propose? Lin Mei asked. Wei looked at his mother, at Su Ming, at the village that had been his home and had become his battlefield. We fight back. Not with violence, but with truth. Su Ming publishes her story. I give a public interview. We name names, show documents, make it impossible for them to operate in the shadows anymore. That's incredibly dangerous, Lin Mei warned. Everything about this is dangerous, Grandma Chen said. But my son is right. When you're fighting shadows, the best weapon is light. As they sat around the kitchen table, planning their counteroffensive, none of them noticed the small drone hovering outside the window, its camera recording everything. In a hotel room 2 provinces away, a woman watched the feed with cold satisfaction. The woman from the market had escaped the raid, and she had not forgotten. Increase the pressure, she told her remaining associates. If they want to play with light, we'll show them what happens when you fly too close to the sun. The real battle was just beginning, and the stakes had never been higher. But in that small kitchen, surrounded by determination and unexpected allies, Grandma Chen felt something she hadn't in weeks: hope. They might be outnumbered, but they were not outmatched. And sometimes, that made all the difference. The morning Su Ming's article was published, everything changed. The headline read, The Programmer Who Chose Justice, A Son's Journey from Crime to Redemption. It was a masterpiece of investigative journalism, complete with documents Wei had provided, photos of the Lin House operation, and interviews with law enforcement officials confirming his crucial role in breaking up the criminal network. By noon, the story had been picked up by national outlets. By evening, Wei's phone wouldn't stop ringing, reporters, government officials, even ordinary citizens calling to express support or condemnation. The village was overrun with media vans and curious onlookers. But with visibility came vulnerability. That night, as Grandma Chen prepared dinner, she noticed Wei standing at the window, his silhouette rigid with tension. "They're out there," he said quietly. "I can feel them watching." "Let them watch," she replied, though her hands trembled as she chopped vegetables. "The whole country is watching now." They wouldn't dare. The brick came through the window like a thunderclap, showering them both with glass. Wrapped around it was a photo, Su Ming, walking to her car, unaware she was being photographed. The message was clear: we can reach anyone. Wei immediately called Su Ming, relief flooding his face when she answered. Lin Mei had assigned her protection after the article's publication, but the threat remained real. They spent the night cleaning glass and boarding up windows, neither speaking the fear that hung between them like smoke. The next few days brought a cascade of crises. The woman from the market, whom they now knew as Victoria Liang, a high-ranking member of the syndicate, had gone underground but not silent. Her reach was longer than anyone had anticipated. First came the financial attacks. Grandma Chen's bank accounts were frozen due to suspicious activity. The small pension she relied on was suddenly inaccessible. When Wei tried to help with his own funds, he discovered those too had been frozen. International banking regulations, they were told, could take weeks to resolve. Then came the legal harassment. A lawsuit appeared, claiming Wei had stolen proprietary code from a tech company, a company that, upon investigation, was a shell corporation owned by the syndicate. The charges were baseless, but defending against them would require lawyers they could no longer afford. "Maybe I should have taken the money," Wei said bitterly one evening, staring at legal documents he couldn't afford to properly fight. "At least then we'd have resources." "Stop that," Grandma Chen said sharply. "Money earned from blood is cursed. You did the right thing." "The right thing is destroying us," Wei shot back, then immediately looked stricken. "I'm sorry, Mother. I thought it would be over by now. I thought exposing them would end it. But the worst was yet to come." 3 days after the article's publication, Grandma Chen woke to find Wei gone. His bed was made, his things neatly arranged, and on the kitchen table was a letter in his careful handwriting. "Dear Mother, I've brought nothing but danger to your door. Every day I stay, the target on your back grows larger. They want me, not you. If I leave, perhaps they'll follow. Please don't look for me. Live your life in peace, the way you did before I returned. I love you more than words can say. Your unworthy son, Wei." Grandma Chen read the letter 3 times before crumpling it in her fist. "Foolish boy," she muttered, though tears streamed down her face. "As if I could have peace without you." She immediately called Lin Mei, then Su Ming, then Mrs. Zhang's grandson at the police station. A search was organized, but Wei had learned too well from his criminal associates how to disappear. His phone was dead, his credit cards unused. He had become a ghost. That night, alone in her too quiet house, Grandma Chen allowed herself to break down completely. She had lost him once to ambition and the city's false promises. Now she had lost him again to guilt and misguided protection. The sobs that racked her body were 21 years in the making. But tears, she had learned long ago, solved nothing. By morning, her resolve had hardened into something diamond-sharp. If her son thought he could protect her by disappearing, he had forgotten who raised him. She began her own investigation, thinking like the mother who had always known when young Wei was hiding something. Where would he go? Not far. Despite his letter, he wouldn't truly abandon her. Somewhere he could watch over her while staying hidden. Somewhere that held meaning for him. The answer came to her suddenly, the old fishing cabin by the mountain lake. Wei's father had taken him there as a boy, teaching him patience and silence. It was isolated, abandoned for years, but Wei would remember it. She didn't tell anyone where she was going. This was between mother and son. The hike took most of the day, her old bones protesting every step, but she pressed on with grim determination. As the sun began to set, she saw smoke rising from the cabin's chimney. "Found you, my clever boy." Wei nearly jumped out of his skin when she opened the door. "Mother! What are you doing here?" "It's dangerous." "Dangerous?" she said calmly, settling herself in the cabin's only chair. "More dangerous than leaving a 73-year-old woman to face syndicate thugs alone?" "I left to protect you." "You left because you were afraid," she corrected. "Not of them. Of yourself. Of the guilt you carry." Wei slumped onto the bed, his head in his hands. 67 people have been arrested because of my testimony. But for everyone we caught, 2 more take their place. I destroyed one head of the Hydra, and now the others want blood. Your blood, because of me. "Look at me," Grandma Chin commanded. When he raised his head, she saw not the confident programmer or the frightened criminal, but her little boy, lost and afraid. "Do you remember," she said softly, "when you were 7 and broke Mrs. Wang's window with your slingshot? You hid in the tool shed for hours, convinced she would have you arrested. You made me apologize and work to pay for the window," Wei remembered. "Because that's what we do when we make mistakes. We face them, fix them, and move forward. Running only makes the shadows grow longer. This isn't a broken window, Mother. This is the same principle, just bigger stakes. You made mistakes, you're fixing them, and now you must face the consequences. But facing them doesn't mean facing them alone." Wei looked at her with wonder. "How are you so strong?" "Because I'm your mother," she said simply. "And mothers don't abandon their children, even when those children try to abandon themselves." They sat in silence for a moment before Wei asked, "What do we do now?" "Now? We go home." Su Ming has been beside herself. "Lin Mei is coordinating an international response. Apparently, your testimony has implications beyond China. And the village." She paused, a small smile playing at her lips. "What about the village?" "They've rallied. Mrs. Zhang organized a protection committee. Mr. Liu and his sons patrol at night. Even the children made banners supporting you. It seems your story touched more hearts than just mine." Wei's eyes filled with tears. "I don't deserve—" "Stop," Grandma Chen interrupted. "Worthiness isn't about deserving. It's about choosing to be better than you were yesterday. You've been choosing better for months now. Don't stop because the path is hard." As they prepared to leave the cabin, Wei's phone, which he'd kept off to avoid tracking, suddenly buzzed with accumulated messages. Most were from Lin Mei and Su Ming, but one made him freeze. It was from Victoria Liang herself. "Your mother found you faster than we did. Impressive. But this hide-and-seek game ends now. Tomorrow, noon, the old textile factory. Come alone, or we release everything, your real crimes, the ones Interpol doesn't know about. The ones that will destroy not just you, but everyone who believed in you." Wei showed the message to his mother, expecting fear. Instead, he saw calculation in her eyes. "What crimes is she talking about?" Grandma Chen asked. Wei's shoulders sagged. "Early on, before I understood what I was really part of, there was a job. Government officials' personal data. I thought it was for blackmail, but they used it to destroy families, ruin careers. 3 people committed suicide because of information I stole. The confession hung between them like a blade. This was the weight he'd been carrying, the guilt that made him believe he deserved every attack. And Interpol doesn't know? I couldn't tell them. If I had, my immunity deal would be void. I'd go to prison, and the testimony would be tainted. All those criminals would go free. Grandma Chen stood slowly, crossing to her son. Then we have until noon tomorrow to figure out how to turn this trap into their downfall. Mother, you don't understand. If this comes out, you'll face the consequences. But you'll face them honestly, not under their manipulation. There's a difference between justice and revenge, Wei. One builds, the other only destroys. They want revenge. We'll give them justice instead. As they made their way down the mountain in the gathering darkness, neither noticed the drone that had tracked them to the cabin, nor the figures that melted back into the forest shadows. The crisis was reaching its crescendo, and tomorrow would bring either redemption or ruin. But for now, in this moment, a mother and son walked together through the darkness, drawing strength from each other for the battle ahead. The game was nearly over, but the final moves had yet to be played. The walk back from the mountain had given them time to think, and by the time they reached the village, a plan was beginning to form. But first, they needed allies. Lin Mei answered on the first ring, her relief palpable when she heard Wei's voice. Within an hour, she had arrived at the house along with Su Ming and, surprisingly, a man Wei didn't recognize, elderly, well-dressed, with eyes that had seen too much. "This is Judge Chen Guangming," Lin Mei introduced. "Retired, but still influential. He's been following your case." The judge studied Wei with an intensity that made him squirm. "Young man, I've presided over hundreds of cases involving cybercrime. Most defendants claim they didn't know the extent of the damage they caused. You're the first who turned himself in because of it. That matters." Wei felt his mother's hand squeeze his shoulder as he forced himself to meet the judge's eyes. "I did know, eventually. And people died because of it." "How does that matter?" "Because," the judge said quietly, "redemption begins with acknowledgement. Now, tell me about this data theft Victoria Liang is threatening to expose." With difficulty, Wei recounted the entire story, how he'd been tasked with hacking into a government database, stealing personal information of mid-level officials. How he'd thought it was for leverage in business deals. How he'd later learned the syndicate had used it to destroy the officials who wouldn't cooperate, exposing affairs, hidden debts, family secrets. 3 had taken their own lives rather than face the shame. "I have nightmares about them," Wei admitted. Their faces were in the news. One had a daughter my age. The room sat in heavy silence until Su Ming spoke. "We need to get ahead of this. If Victoria releases it, she controls the narrative. But if Wei confesses publicly first, he'd go to prison," Lin Mei said flatly. The immunity deal was for crimes you knew about." Judge Chen interrupted. "This is new information. However," he paused, thinking, "there might be a way. Restorative justice. If the families of the victims agree, if Wei makes amends." "You're talking about blood money," Wei said bitterly. "No," Grandma Chen spoke up. "He's talking about taking responsibility. There's a difference between running from consequences and facing them with dignity." They talked through the night, refining their plan. It was risky, potentially catastrophic, but it was better than letting Victoria control the situation. As dawn broke, they had their strategy. First, Su Ming would prepare an article, not for immediate publication, but as insurance. It would contain Wei's full confession, his remorse, and his attempts to make amends. If Victoria tried to release a twisted version, they'd counter with truth. Second, Judge Chen would quietly reach out to the families of the victims through intermediaries. The approach would be delicate, respectful, offering not just financial compensation but genuine accountability. Third, and most crucially, they would not go to the factory as Victoria demanded. Instead, they would force her into the open. "She's desperate," Lin Mei analyzed. "The organization is crumbling, her assets are frozen, her network is compromised. This is her last play for revenge or leverage. We need to make her overplay her hand." The plan was set in motion immediately. Within hours, Judge Chen had made contact with 2 of the 3 families. The response was mixed. One family wanted nothing to do with Wei, but the other was willing to listen. The 3rd family had moved abroad, unreachable for now. Meanwhile, Su Ming worked on her article, interviewing Wei with a thoroughness that left him emotionally drained. Every question forced him to confront his actions anew, to articulate not just what he'd done but why and how it had changed him. "I was arrogant," he told her, his voice raw. "I thought I was smarter than everyone, the criminals who hired me, the people I was hurting. I reduced human lives to data points, until those data points became obituaries." As noon approached, Wei's phone rang. Victoria's voice was sharp with anger. "Where are you?" "The factory, now, or I release everything." "No," Wei said simply. "What?" "I said no." "You want to destroy me?" "Go ahead. But I won't dance to your tune anymore." "You stupid fool. Do you know what I have? Recordings, documents, proof that you're not the reformed hero everyone thinks." "I know exactly what you have," Wei interrupted. "And I'm not a hero. I'm someone trying to make amends for terrible choices. Release what you want. I'll face the consequences. Your mother is right here, listening to everything. We're done being afraid of you, Victoria." There was silence on the line, then a harsh laugh. "You think confession will save you? You think those families will forgive you? You'll rot in prison while I disappear." "Maybe," Wei acknowledged. "But at least I'll sleep without nightmares." The line went dead. Within minutes, Wei's phone exploded with notifications. Victoria had made good on her threat, releasing documents across social media, sending them to news outlets, government officials, anyone who might listen. But she had made a crucial error. In her haste and anger, she had included documents that implicated herself and other syndicate members in crimes they thought were hidden. Lin Mei's team pounced on the information, cross-referencing it with their existing database. "She just gave us 3 more names," Lin Mei said with satisfaction. "Including her handler in the ministry. She was so focused on destroying you, she destroyed herself." Still, the damage to Wei was severe. Within hours, his immunity deal was under review. Prosecutors were calling for his arrest. The court of public opinion, so recently sympathetic, turned harsh. How many other crimes had he hidden? Was his redemption just another con? But then something unexpected happened. The second family Wei had wronged, the Zhangs, whose patriarch had been exposed for embezzlement he'd committed to pay for his son's cancer treatment, released a statement. They had met with Judge Chen, heard Wei's full confession, and chosen to forgive. "Our father made mistakes trying to save our brother," the statement read. "He paid with his life. Mr. Chen made mistakes out of greed and ignorance. But he is trying to pay with his actions. We believe in second chances, because we wished for one that never came." The statement shifted the narrative slightly, but Wei's future remained uncertain. That evening, as they sat in the garden where this had all begun, Grandma Chen noticed her son seemed oddly at peace. "You're not afraid anymore," she observed. "I'm terrified," Wei corrected. "But it's a clean terror, if that makes sense. No more